So it all started for me at Portsmouth Football Club, where I come through the academy there. I actually got released when I was about 13, I think, and got released. I wasn't really enjoying my football. Going to the academy, there was too much pressure, I felt, and probably just wasn't good enough, and got released. Went and enjoyed my football, playing grassroots football, and then a year later Portsmouth invited me back to come again. I think I was in a lot better mental state and ready for what was expected when I come back to Portsmouth, and then managed to get through the last couple of years to get myself an apprenticeship. I lived with one of my good friends from school, got an apprenticeship, and Asmir Begovic, who's obviously gone on to have an unbelievable career, still a good friend of mine, and I learnt a lot in them days, and I got a really good grounding at the club and what to expect. Very much changed in the game now, but yeah, it was a good grounding. This picture here is my first loan to a Conference South team in Bognor Regis. The reason I went there was A, to get first team football, but B was the way they played the game. For a Conference South team, they just wanted to play out from the back and play football in the right way, and the way that Portsmouth wanted to play, and I thought it would be a great start for me in the men's game to go there. And I went there and I had 3 months there and really enjoyed my time, and then went back to Portsmouth and went on to Woking Town Football Club, which was it. They were a team in the conference at the time, another men's football team, and it was the next level up, which I wanted to test myself at. I was 18 at the time. Went in there as a centre half, scored on my debut there, and really learnt a lot there. I think any young players coming through and getting to sort of 18 to 20, going on loan was such a big thing for me. I learnt so much from the sort of adult players who needed the win to pay their mortgage or whatever that was, and the pressures that came, and also just seeing how they dealt with different situations. Funnily enough, at the end of my time there, they actually offered me a 2-year contract, and I sat down with my mum and dad. I remember sitting there, and we really considered it. I think it was £200 a week more than Portsmouth were offering, and I was really considering it just for the money. But I remember sitting down, so then I rung a few people in the game, and their advice was, don't go, stay at the highest level you can and stay there for as long as you can. So that was really important for me, taking that step, and obviously I'm glad I did do that. So then I went back to Portsmouth, and it was when they had a lot of the top stars there. Harry Redknapp was a manager. I had Sol Campbell, Jermaine Defoe, Nico Cranchar, Carnu, to name a few. And I was sort of training in and out with the first team. Harry Redknapp was telling me to be careful with my tackles with the first team lads, because I liked to tackle back then. And I remember really clearly, he pulled me into his office and just said, Pearcey, I think it'd be a great move for you to go on loan to Bournemouth. My good friend Kevin Bond's there, and it'd be a great move for your career. Become a man, learn your trade, go and do it, basically. And I said, all right, brilliant, thank you. And then I went down, travelled down there, and it was going to be a loan move. Went in there for a few weeks, and quickly they wanted to turn it into a permanent move, and I did too. And at the time they were in League One, so I thought it'd be a great opportunity for me to learn my trade again at a good level, and then obviously try and move up the leagues that way. And I felt at the time I would never really get an opportunity in the team that Portsmouth had. I wouldn't get a look in, and I found it tough, so I had to do it a different way. So yes, I went straight to Bournemouth, and I remember my debut at Bournemouth. I had to play, being a left footer. I had to play right back for the first game of the season, away to Nottingham Forest, which is one of the big clubs in the league. A full house at Nottingham Forest against Chris Commons, who was a real tough winger. And I remember really fearing the game, but I managed to come through. We managed to get a 0-0 draw, which I was really proud of. And yeah, we just went on from strength to strength. So here's obviously the end of that season, but we actually we got relegated Then the next season in League Two, we started the season on minus 17 points. At the time, don't think we really had an owner. We didn't have anywhere to train. We never had any lunch. There were so many things that were going against us. But I remember Eddie Howe took over, and at the point Eddie Howe took over, he said, "Listen, like, you can either sit there and worry and let things externally affect you, or we can get together as a group, galvanise as a group, get to work and put everything else aside and just give it a real good go." I remember listening to that, and at times it was difficult because we had the owner and administrators coming in saying you weren't going to get paid and things like that. But the group we had was unbelievable, and we all stayed together. And Eddie, just to speak about Eddie, like the way he changed the standards in training, the culture of the group was incredible. I think obviously he come in, he retired through injury. He come in as a young coach who helped me a lot, being a centre half as well. And just the way he was with people, you could tell, you could speak to him, but you knew he was the boss. And if you stepped out of line or the standards weren't right, he told you. And it really showed me, it gave me an insight into how to be as a coach and as a person. So I took a lot from that, but the group really bought into what he wanted to do. He had some great ideas of how to play, his philosophy, and the training was top drawer. Even at his young age, what he'd done and his knowledge of the game was very good. So no, and then we started the season on minus 17, and then we just took every game. I know it's a cliche, took every game as it comes, and we actually started quite poorly. And then we managed to get on a bit of a roll, and it was a few up and down, but once we started to get on a roll and started to win some games, we felt there was no stopping us. And I mentioned like this group of players, I've stayed in contact with most of these players, and I could call them any time. I think that goes to show the group we had. See Danny Holland's in there, who obviously played at Charlton as well. So no, it was an unbelievable group, and to an achievement to stay up minus 17 points was unbelievable, and the feeling that it gave us to stay in the Football League and with all the adversity that came with that season was incredible. So yeah, unbelievable. Here we go to the end again. So I remember that season, Eddie was still in charge, and I think we had that momentum. We finished the season off really well. Kept the nucleus of the squad and had a few other younger players. And I just remember, for me, steamrolling that season. It was an unbelievable season. You had Brett Pittman in that picture there, who scored some really important goals and was a real goal scorer for us. And we had other players in there, but I remember this game, Burton away, just thinking if we got the result, we were up. And I just remember the feeling walking out, and we went out with a little bit of arrogance to us because we knew we were a good team, and we got the job done. It was a beautiful sunny day, and obviously all the fans are there behind us, and it was a massive achievement for me. That water ball in my hand stayed with me the whole season. Everyone who knows me always knows I carry around a water ball, so that's always with me. But no, yeah, unbelievable season, that, unbelievable. So this season, obviously we've been promoted to League One. Started the season really well. Eddie Howe was a manager. I remember him calling me into the office saying I was a captain at the time, and he called me and said he's got an opportunity to go and manage in the league above at Burnley, I think it was. And I was so disappointed. I was like, anything you can do to stay? I feel like I'm improving as a player under him, learning so much. He's so good for the group. I didn't want him to go, and I remember him saying, I remember him addressing the group, and obviously we've been through a lot, and I remember him just bursting into tears. He obviously knew it was a real tough decision for him because we had such a tight-knit group, but he had to do it for his career and his future, and I think as players we all understood that. So obviously Eddie left, and I think Lee Bradbury in the picture there took over, and he basically tried to keep. He could have come in and changed everything, but he knew we were doing well, and we were onto a winner. We had a group which was fighting for each other. We were doing well in the league, and he kept things the same. And again, we were doing so well in the league, and we managed to get into the playoffs towards the end of the season. we had Huddersfield in this playoff semi-final. I remember, I think we drew the first leg at home, and then we went to the away leg. Tough game, full house. I was the captain, a lot of responsibility on me, and this picture is me actually getting sent off in the game. I think got sent off at 2-2, I believe, for probably for me, still to this day, I still think it's a fair tackle, but the game's changing, probably was changing at the time. I remember it was Kevin Kilban, quite an experienced player. I've flown into a tackle and smashed him. He's flown over me and the ball, and he's milked it. He's milked it for me, but I got sent off, straight red, and let my teammates down. So the lads had to play the rest of the game, and extra time with 10 men. The lads done unbelievable, give it a great shot, and in the end I think we lost on penalties. It was 3-3 in the game. So for me that game sort of made me realise, being the captain, the responsibility you have to make the right decisions. I had a decision to make on that tackle, whether obviously the way I play I'm quite wholehearted, but I had a decision. I could have just gone in and won the ball and not made that decision. So I think for me that was probably the wrong decision, and I let my team down. And with me on the pitch, I believe we would have gone on to win that game. I just knew I wanted to play Championship football. I remember going into the office with Lee Bradbury, Eddie Mitchell, who was the owner at the time, and they sat me down and just said, Jace, like, we want to make you the highest paid player. We want you to lead the group and take us to the Championship. And I just had in my head I wanted to play in the Championship, and I think at the time there was a bit of interest from Championship level, and yeah, I just felt that was my next move. And although it was tough for me, but I just think once I had that decision in my mind, I wanted to go. And to be fair to them, they respected it, and then they allowed me to move on. And that was when I went back to Portsmouth, which was amazing for me, because I'm a sort of a southern lad from Hampshire. Suited me massively. Was with my to be wife. She was in university at Southampton, so it was unbelievable. Within quite a few, not many weeks, I was made captain. And I remember Steve Cottrell saying to me, we had Herman Haridason, he was a little, obviously he's been at Charlton, he was a little bit of maybe a bully a little bit with the younger players, and threw his weight around. And I remember Steve Cottrell saying, right, someone needs to, at a corner, someone needs to mark Herman. And no one wanted to do it, and I said, go on, I'll do it. And I remember him trying to give me a few digs, and I'll just give him a little bit back. And obviously I was still a young lad, only 24 I think I was. And I remember after that session, Herman had total respect for me. And I remember Steve Cottrell still uses that to a lot of his players, and just showing the character that sometimes you need to have. With older players and more experienced players, you've got to stand up for yourself. It was a good experience, but something that I learnt from, and towards the end of the season, Portsmouth went into administration. So I'm feeling like the black cat now. I've been in administration at Bournemouth, administration at Portsmouth, and it's, I'm thinking, wow, what's next? But I remember getting towards the end of the season, and we're actually doing quite well, but then we got the minus 10 points, and eventually we finished the season and we got relegated. Due to the 10 points, we would have stayed up. So again, a massive disappointment to get relegated. I was thinking, wow, I want to get to the Championship, and then I'm relegated at the first shot. So that was a real learning curve. But this stage of my career, I'd bought a house, really settled, and enjoying my football again. This is at the end of the season, so obviously we've been relegated. The fans, to be fair, the fans at Portsmouth, unbelievable. I think really bought into the way I played as a wholehearted defender, but also because I come through the ranks there. I think I obviously held a special place for me, but also I think the fans, any club wants to see their young players coming through, and I actually won every award at the end of that season. So for me, as a personal achievement, it was a really successful season, and one I'm proud of, but ultimately as a team we didn't quite do enough and got relegated. So at the end of the Portsmouth season, we obviously went into administration. I remember Trevor Birch was the administrator, Michael Appleton was the manager, and I remember them calling me into the office and saying, Pearce, you're one of the young ones. Joel Ward as well, who's gone on to have a brilliant career, and we need to sell you. We need to sell you to keep the club afloat. And I couldn't believe it because I just bought a house, just settled, and it just shows you where football can change so quickly. And you think you're settled, and then you've got to uproot and move again. So that's one of the hard parts of the game. But I remember sitting there thinking, wow. And luckily for me, because I had a good season, I had a couple of clubs interested. One being Leeds, Neil Warnock. They come in for me and offered me a 4-year contract. And then Burnley was the other one, which was Eddie Howe, was the manager. And I remember the advice I got given, which was really tough because two really good contracts, very similar, and two very different teams. But one team, Eddie Howe, is an old manager of mine I loved, and Leeds, a humongous club in the game. And the advice I got given was, don't move to a club for the manager. I didn't sort of really know what they meant by that, but now coming to the end of my career, I realise that now that obviously the managers can move on very quickly, and you're then stuck at a club. So for me, I made the decision to go to Leeds. It's a bigger club. I felt a bigger opportunity to be promoted. And yeah, it was a difficult conversation with Eddie, letting him know, but he respected it, and that was that. But yeah, moving to Leeds was incredible. Obviously, moved my family up north, and yeah, it was. I think from the first day, walked in and it was a nice family feel. The training ground was brilliant, really nice Thorpe Arch, totally different to what I've experienced before with swimming pool and top pitches, good people. But then I remember going on a pre-season tour. I think it was down in Devon somewhere, and I'm thinking obviously there's not going to be many people here, and there was thousands and thousands and thousands of Leeds fans. It was unbelievable for a pre-season game, and I thought, wow, it hit me then. I thought, wow, this is a big club that I'm playing for, and then just Neil Warnock was the manager. I think I was there at the club for about 2.5 years, signed a 4-year contract. Had some good times, had some down times at the club, and as you can imagine, I think being at such a big club, when things aren't going right, then the fans tell you. So I think your mentality, you've got to have a strong mentality to play for Leeds and play at Ellen Road in front of them fans, which I felt like I did, and I feel like I got the respect from the fans. But it was a tough time. So here, me and Jacko, back then, rivals. I think that picture epitomises me as a captain and Jacko, really. That I think in general, always friendly, always a friendly person off the pitch. As soon as I'm on that pitch, there's no friends. We're in a battle, 90-minute battle. I remember, I've been fortunate enough to be captain of every club I've played for, but yeah, I remember coming up, you do the coin toss. I don't look at the opposition. Didn't look at Jacko, and then we have to do the handshake, and we're both looking away. So I knew I was in for a battle, and he knew he was in for a battle, and that's just the way it was. And I think it goes to show. I think there's sometimes nowadays there's too many people be nice. So I think you're captain, you got to lead by example, and I tried to do that. And for me, I just, before the games and stuff, I see some people hugging each other in opposition and saying hello to each other, and I just can't. I was never able to do it. I always had that focus in my mind, in my eyes. I wouldn't speak to anyone. I was focused on my performance and doing well for the team, doing well for the club. And then at the end of the game, I would give him a cuddle. I would say well played. Even if we'd smashed each other or tackled each other or said a few nasty things, at the end of the game, the battle's done. The result is what it is, and you're back being friends again. So that's a great picture, to be fair, to show what I'm like and what Jacko was like, and obviously being two players that have played for Charlton. Jacko obviously being a legend. It just epitomises everything about us. We never managed to achieve much while I was there, to be honest. We underperformed, underachieved with what we had. But towards the end, I remember the ownership changing. First of all, Ken Bates was the owner when I first went in there, ex-Chelsea. I remember going to his office before, and he had all the Chelsea memorabilia in the Leeds office, which was a little bit interesting. I don't think it probably would have gone down well if the fans would have seen it, but I was quite intrigued and enjoyed looking at some of the photos. But towards the end, obviously he left, and then Massimo Cellino come in. And that was a real change. I did enjoy living there, enjoyed playing there, felt like I was still improving. But then he come in and changed the culture totally, and obviously brought a load of players left, and a load of players come in, and they're all pretty much all Italian players and foreign players. And I really struggled with that, being the captain, and I tried to bring everyone together, but it was a real divide in the camp. And what I found was difficult was that things that I sort of don't accept as a person and know what's right and wrong in football was being allowed. So things like smoking, which is ridiculous to be fair. I'd come into training ground, I'd see a load of smoke coming out of one of the rooms, and all the Italian players are smoking before training. You finish training, they'd be smoking. At a game at half time, they'd all go smoking. So that straight away didn't sit right with me, and I didn't like that. I realised that I was sort of being pushed out, and then I got the captaincy taken off of me, and I still believe I was good enough to be there and be a captain, but obviously I was being pushed out, and I had a year and a half left on my contract, the best money I've been on in my career. And I could have easily sat there and said, I'll sit there and take the money. I'm not going to get that elsewhere and sit there and see what happens. But for me, it's never been about money, and I've said that throughout my whole career, and I'm always like that now. And I think I made the decision to go and play football, and rightly so. I think if you choose to sit and potentially rot in the reserves or under 21s or whatever it was, then you quickly get forgotten in football. Going to Wigan, where they were bottom of the league, and felt I relished the battle. I relished being an underdog. And here's a picture against, I think Norwich were one of the top teams in the league at the time, and we had a good battle, and we done well. As Harry Maguire in the picture, who's obviously gone on to have an unbelievable career, and having an unbelievable career in captaining England, Man United, and for me, he was one of the best, not the best partner I've had, but definitely one of the best. And I could just see, he was obviously younger than me, I could just see how good he was and the presence he had, the ability on the ball. I could tell he had everything. We had a good go. I remember we had a real good go that season, and just didn't make it, and we still got relegated. So a lot of players left there. We had a lot of players there on real good money, and they wanted to reshape the squad and the club really, and dropping down to League One wasn't what I wanted. But again, it was a battle, and something that the owner, Dave Whelan, he had his grandson, David Sharp. He was only 23 at the time, and he was sort of taking charge of everything at the club. And I remember sort of coming in that pre-season, and he sat down. Gary Caldwell, who was a player there, and coming towards the end, he then took over as manager, and got his opportunity as a young manager. And I remember them coming in and saying, right, we're going to have a real good go. We're going to spend some money, and we're going to go for it. So I thought, well, I want to be part of this. I'd love to be part of it. So, yeah, all the big players in terms of the monetary wise, they all left, and then they brought a new influx of younger players into the squad, and kept a few of the nucleus there. And I remember sitting down the first day of pre-season, and Gary Caldwell come in and spoke to us, and he said, right, we're going to play this way. Showed us his way of playing, his philosophy, and he said, we're going to play like this, and we're going to do it, practice it every day. And we were excited, and we started the season horrendous. And we all, as lads, we were thinking, we don't want to do this. We want to just go long, and we don't want to play out from the back. Let's just go long and play in their half, and make it difficult for teams. And I remember him sitting down, just to keep believing, just believe in what we're doing, believe in what we're doing every day, practicing, and eventually eventually it started coming good, and we started getting results, and we started steamrolling teams, and we just started moving up and up and up the league. And it was incredible for me looking back at that, to hear that from a manager, because it quite easily there's the pressures for managers and having to get results, but he had no pressure. He said, no, listen, we'll just keep believing. And I took a lot from that, and we did. We kept believing, and we kept practicing. We got better, and eventually we got promoted. And there's obviously the picture, the proof that we got promoted back to the Championship. And I think you can see from my face, I'm quite happy there. Here we go now. Signing for Charlton. So before I signed for Charlton, obviously the previous picture you see, lifting the trophy for Wigan, winning the league, and then I get told you're not good enough to play in the Championship. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, wow, I've just been promoted, feel like I've had a real good season, want to build on it, we've got a good group of players, and then I'm told I'm not good enough. So I thought, right, again it was, do I sit there, take the year or so I've got left on my contract and not play, or do I go and leave and play my football? Obviously we were a Championship club, still wanted to stay in the Championship, but Charlton come in, and Russell Slade come in and spoke really highly of the club, and it was back down south. I just had a baby, getting back closer to my family. It just suited me massively. So I come and met him, and then really liked what I heard and what I saw. Really felt it was a real family club, and that's what I'm about, and that's my values. I love my family. So made the move to go down a level and really work hard and try and get myself up. So come in with Russ and knew a few of the lads hit at Charlton already, and we had a good group. And that season I remember being quite, well, the first game of the season, here we go. First game of the season, as a new player, you want to start the season really well for the fans. You come in, they say, oh yeah, he's a good player, he'll be a good player for us. I remember giving away a penalty, and it was a terrible performance. So for me, it wasn't the best start, and I was an uphill battle, I thought, from there. But now listen, like, these things happen as long as you learn from them, and it wasn't the start we wanted. But I remember that season being more about, we were actually relatively solid defensively, we just didn't score many goals, and we didn't quite make it to the playoffs, and it was a bit disappointing with the squad we had. So yeah, that was disappointing. Russ obviously lost his job, and then a new manager comes in. So the next season you're thinking, right, let's go, let's have a good season. He obviously left, and then I remember Carl Robinson coming in. He had a real way of playing, a philosophy, and which really excited me and a lot of the players. And I learnt a lot from him in terms of the coaching side. We got to the playoffs that year, and eventually lost out to Shrewsbury, which is really disappointing. But I think overall, when I look back at them 2 games, they were better than us. And I think we hold our hands up as much as the disappointment of not making it to the final or getting promoted that year. I don't think we were quite good enough. So that was disappointing. But then move on to the next season. So I remember Carl bringing in Lee Bowyer as a first team coach. He sort of come out from nowhere, and he come in and helped deal with the strikers. And I remember a lot of the lads who just used to smash the ball in shooting practice, and he was adamant, literally side foot it into the corner, and that's all he used to say. And he used to take the rondos, and obviously then Jacko was coming towards the end, and he started doing a bit more coaching and getting more involved, and he was really invested, and you could tell he was learning a lot from Carl Robinson. So we had a good little group there, and the team we had there, when I look back at that team, and you had the likes of, I'm sure, Esri Konza. I played with, not this season, but Adamola Lookman, Joe Rebo. We had some top, Christian Bielik, Josh Cullen. I can name so many players, an unbelievable group of players that season. I'm very fortunate to play with them and captain the group. So I remember Carl getting sacked, and then we didn't know what was going on, and I think everyone thought Jacko would get the job, to be honest. He was like the first team coach, and Bo would come in relatively late. He wouldn't be in as early as Jacko, and he'd do his session and then he'd get off. So I think the way Jacko was invested, I think as a few of the lads, we thought Jacko would have got it, and then it was obviously announced that Bo got it. And to be fair to Bo, he changed the way he was and done his best, and we carried the group, him and Jacko, towards the end of the season, and we managed to get into the playoffs. And this is obviously the highlight of my career, and not only for what the end result was, but what happened before that. I think the semi-final game I didn't play, and Naby Sarr played, and I felt like I wanted to play, obviously, as any player would, and Naby coming towards the end of the season, he had a run towards the end of the season, and he was doing really well, and credit where credit's due, he done great, and he rightly so. He was the choice in the semi-final, and obviously we got through that game. But I remember starting this game and coming up to Wembley and not starting. I was thinking, I've worked all my career to try and get this opportunity, and not every player gets an opportunity to play at Wembley, especially in a playoff final. And I'm starting on the bench, so I was actually really disappointed. But I knew my job as a captain, as a leader, was to get around the group and gee the lads up and make sure everyone's on it. And ultimately, we all wanted the same thing. We all wanted to get promoted back to the Championship. So, so I had the right mindset. I knew my mindset, and I felt like I had a part to play that day. So obviously, we know what happened in terms of obviously giving the goal away, a poor start, and I knew that wouldn't be the only goal in the game. I remember obviously Naby's pass back, went under Dylan's foot, and it was 1-0. And I remember shortly after that, Dylan making an unbelievable save to stop it being 2-0. And I thought it just showed his character, Dylan, for making a potential mistake between the both of them, to then making that unbelievable save to keep us in the game. And then obviously Ben Purrington then goes and scores the other end later in the half. And then at half time, I'm doing the warm up as you usually do, and just enjoying being around, thinking nothing of, I'm never gonna come on now. I might come on towards the end of the game, 1-0, and then the fitness coach, I think Josh, comes running out. Pissy, Gaffer wants you. You're needed. I'm like, what? And then my heart starts beating. I'm thinking, oh my word, I'm going to go on. So I've gone in there, and he says, you're coming on. Naby's coming off. You're coming on. Steady the ship. Be the captain you are. And go out and obviously do your best. So I was really pumped to do well, and wanted to change the game. And I felt like in the second half we started well, and I felt like we were more on top than they were. I felt like they got the better of us in all first half, and the tide started turning, and I think Johnny Williams come on midway through the half, and he sort of changed the game. And obviously I played my part, and this here is obviously the last kick of the game. I remember Josh Cullen, I think he went to cross it, done a Cruyff turn, then crosses it with his left. The ball's coming in. Parker here. This man is probably my best centre-half partner I've played with. Just for the relationship we had on the pitch, we knew exactly what each other were going to do. And I remember the ball coming in, and I trusted everything Pat said, and I think he would say the same about me. And I remember him shouting, "Pat's ball." And I remember the guy coming up, and there was a guy in front of me. I felt like I could have headed it, but I trusted him and just ducked under it, held the guy down, and then see Pat come powering through, headed it, he saved it. Then his reaction was quickest, and smashing it goes. So no, it was that was an unbelievable feeling, knowing that it's such a late goal, in the game, in such a humongous game, such a big crowd, a full house at Wembley, and obviously the scenes when we scored was unbelievable. And then afterwards, for me to come on in a game of that magnitude, and then to lift the trophy in front of all the fans was, for me, was the highlight of my career for sure. I think here, I'm just obviously in delight that we've just won the game, but also the fact that what happened in the goal, and his performance after, his mentality was just like well done, and just elated for him, personally, and I got on well with Dill. He's a massive character within the dressing room, and I think you saw from the song and stuff, we all get round, and he leads it. He's a young lad at the time, but he was unbelievable that season, and I was so pleased for him. And this is just the icing on the cake, being able to lift the trophy. And I think for me, obviously Souls didn't play that game, and I think as a captain, I felt he's a massive. He was a bit of a legend at the club. He's been at the club all the way through, and I could have easily just said to him, "Listen, like, I'm going to lift the trophy." But for me, it was really important that he lifted that as well. I remember saying to him, "Listen, you're lifting it with me, mate." And he was like, "All right, cool." But I felt that was a really important moment for him and the club, and obviously myself. And it's not about me; it's about everyone at the club, and that's really important. But for me, that's the proudest moment, to lift the trophy at Wembley. Unbelievable feeling, and in front of all the Charlton fans was just incredible. Then we move on to getting promoted to the Championship, which was brilliant. Back in the Championship again, skipper. Do you know what? We started the season unbelievably. We were flying high. We were a match for most teams. To be fair, we were up there, and when we fancied our chances, we had a good group, and Bo used to set us up. We didn't worry so much about us. We just used to worry about the opposition, which is different to how I'd potentially want to be as a coach. I want to worry about us, and then see little things about the opposition and worry a little bit. But I think we used to change all the time for the opposition. And at the start, we were going toe to toe with everyone, and then obviously things changed and COVID hit, and it changed the situation in the club, and obviously we had a few ups and downs in the season, and then it come to a point where when we were coming back and people were potentially out of contract, and it affected them if they played, and it was financially it was a weird situation at the time. And I just remember a few key players decided they didn't want to carry on, and I think that really affected us as a group. But I think from fighting towards the end and taking it to the last day, I think everyone associated with the club knew the players on the pitch give everything, give their all, and it was just so disappointing to go back to Leeds. I remember sitting on the bench. Coming off, I think I'd done my calf or Achilles. I had to come off, sitting on the bench right at the end of the game, and there was about 5 minutes to go, and at the time we were staying up. And I remember turning to Ollie Groom and saying, "What's the scores? What's the scores?" And literally in the last minute of the game, last kick of the game, I think Brentford lost or won or lost, I think, or conceded, and we were down. And I thought there's no way back. So that was a massively disappointing day in my career, to go so close and give everything, sort of against the odds really, and then get relegated. So yeah, that was a real down day and a real tough time, and especially with knowing that at the end of that season it was going to be, or a lot of the group who we had a good group, we were going to be leaving. It was going to be a totally new group, so it was tough. And then obviously went back down to League One, and aspirations to want to go up, and I think ultimately I won't talk too much about the season. I think ultimately it was a big disappointment in my last season. I think what I found hard in the last season for me was, and one of the reasons why I decided to retire was the political side. I found, for me, it was that my age come into it. I still felt like my performances, I was performing well, and I felt like I was left out of the team at times when I shouldn't have been, and I think that showed in some of the results. And when I did come back in the team, the results we had with me in the team, and I felt where it got political, in terms of you're too old, or your legs are going and whatever, I found that really difficult to take. And although, yeah, there's a part of me that's, I've proved people wrong and things like that, I think That side of the game I really find difficult, and I think if you're playing well and you're young and you're playing well, you get an opportunity, you stay in the team. And if you're old and you're playing well, you should deserve to stay in the team, and that's always been my way, and that's the way I'd want to stay. But I remember before the game being told, the day before the game being told I wasn't going to get offered anything as a player, and that really hit me hard because I was hoping I'd be able to sort of stay at the club as a player, and then obviously going into that game knowing that it was difficult, and I remember losing 4-0, and it was a really massively disappointing end to the season, and I just remember clapping the fans thinking I'm never obviously going to do this again at this football club. So yeah, that was really difficult, but I was proud of my time at the club and what I'd achieved. Here we go, in my new role with Hamza. So yeah, obviously come towards the end, and it was a real tough decision. I had some real good offers to play, carry on playing, but the opportunity to stay at the club and work with the young players coming through, the prestigious academy with producing really good young talented players, and the opportunity to work with them players and work with Hamza was too good to turn down for me. And again, I'll come back to money, where I had opportunities to play elsewhere for more money, but for me and what was right for in my stage of my career, it was important that I take this role, and that was important, and I don't look back, don't regret it. Started it, Hamza's been unbelievable with me and helping me, and I'm really looking forward to working at the club and staying at the club, and can't wait to help the next generation come through. As a player, and myself wanting to go into the coaching side, I think you sort of try and take good and bad points from every manager, and Carl was someone that was a very good coach on the grass, and learned a lot from him in that side, and also very personable, and as a person off the pitch, wanted to know about you and your family, and I took a lot from that, and I think you can see in the picture that we must have won, so he's happy and I'm happy, but we got on well. But there's a few things that stick out in my mind which has helped build my character and be the person I am, and one that sticks out to me is relatively early in my career. I won't say who the manager was, but I remember being in the team as a young player and playing well at the time, and then I got dropped out of the team, which obviously can happen. But I remember a lot of my teammates saying, "Pearce, you got to go and talk to the manager and ask like why are you not playing? It's like you should be playing." So I remember walking into the office, knocking on the door. I said, "Why, like Gaffer? I want to know why I'm not playing. I feel like I should be playing." Sat me down, said, "Listen here, son. You're not good enough to play for this football club. You'll never be good enough to play for this football club. And if you go and tell anyone I told you that, I'll break both your legs." So as a young player, I'm sitting there thinking, wow, my career's really just begun, and now it could be over. That's what I thought. So I've walked out of his office and I just burst into tears. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to speak to, because I knew I thought he would do something to me if that happened. And I remember my teammates coming up to me and just saying, "What's wrong?" And I was in tears, and I just explained it straight to them, and then it sort of changed in terms of the mentality of the group. Knew I was a good person, but it changed in terms of how they were with the manager, and he didn't stay long. He didn't stay long at the club. So for me, that was just something I'd learned really quickly at a young age, and how I would never ever speak to someone, and how to speak to someone, but also it gave me a real learning curve. It's how to be strong as a person, and sometimes what people say, obviously won't define you. But yeah, that was a tough moment in my career. I think a few things happened in terms of how managers were, which was difficult. I think you deserve to come on or play on merit. And I remember one manager, being on the bench, and it was like the 89th minute. I think we're winning. I walked up, he said, "Pearce, you're coming on." I walked up to him. He's told me all the tactics, what to do, blah, 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 see the game out. And I'm just about to go on, got my shirt on, ready to go on, and he's gone, "I want half your appearance." I've gone, "Gaffer, I haven't got any appearance money." He went, sit back down then. Next one, come over here. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. So like, little things like that are just mad little stories, which for me, I just wouldn't be like that. And then on the flip side of that, I also looked at the positives and took positives from managers as well. And I mentioned Eddie before, and Eddie Howe is someone I really look up to, and he gave me an opportunity at quite a young age to be a captain. And I remember him saying to me, "Listen, Pearcey, like you haven't got to change being a captain. Just stay the way you are." And the way I was obviously got on well with everyone, led by example, tried to do things right on and off the pitch. So like a role model for younger players, but I was a young player, so it was a weird situation. But he gave me that faith to be the captain of the club, and obviously I thank him for that. But that's something that I think as a coach moving forward, if someone stands out as being that right person, whatever their age is, it doesn't matter. It hasn't got to be an experienced player, it hasn't got to be an older player. If they do the right things, lead by example, communicate, all these things, I think it's really important. So I'm very thankful to him for giving me that opportunity, but also not only that, the way he was, the way he held himself. He was always in early, always in first, before all the players, always left last. So for me as a coach, looking at that, I want to be like that. He was in the gym, so just the way he was as a person, and then the values and the culture he created within the training ground. The respect side, just obviously please and thank you, little things like that, which I've always been taught as a young player, but then you're breeding that through the squad. Really respectful to everyone. No one's above anyone else. So that goes from the kit man to the groundsman, to the players, to anyone. Everyone's the same. Everyone is your people first, and then your footballers second. So and I think that's really important. You leave your ego at home, and when we had that, that's why we done so well. I think because we had that real team ethic where we worked hard together, and everyone was one. So and in terms of his training, I remember Eddie we're doing a passing drill, and one pass goes wide and doesn't make the man, you're going on a run. He sends you around the pitch. So that then builds the standards. So just little things like everything in training, but little things build into big things, and that's how you create that environment to be successful. And for me, he's the best I've worked with, even at such a young age. And I'm sure he's improved and evolved as a manager, and he'll go on to do unbelievably well. But being such an influence on my career, and feel very fortunate to still be in contact with him now. With the difficult decision I had coming towards the end of my career and potentially retiring or playing, I rang him and spoke to him, and he gave me some real good advice and feedback. And he said, normally I say to players, play as long as you can. But in your case, Pearcey, I think this is a perfect fit for you. And I think you should go for it. I don't think you should look back. He said, take your time, relax. Don't try and chase getting into a first team straight away, and learn your trade. And I took so much from that, and I really respect him, and I really took that on board. So he was a big influence on my decision to retire, and I'm grateful for his advice. Yeah, and another manager, Steve Cottrell, to be fair, I want to add him. I asked his advice as well, and he was someone who I respect and gave me an opportunity at Portsmouth and made me captain again. So he's another one I asked his advice, and he just said you could carry on playing. You can carry on playing and being a bit part and not enjoying it, or you could get straight stuck into an under-18 role and love it. And he said you won't look back. So I had two people I really respect give me advice, and I'm thankful for that, and it helped me make my decision.